Hey guys, today we're going to make the Pop-Up Trinket shop. It's a shop where you can pick up your magical trinkets and stuff, ogre toes, etc. And you can open up parts of it and look inside, put the minis in there. So it's a little place where you guys can buy stuff. And of course the whole thing folds flat and pops back up. So let's get to it. First thing, let's go through our supplies list. You're going to need a copy of your Pop-Up Trinket Shop PDF printed out, double-sided at least for the first 3 pages. And I found that if you want to align properly, sometimes it helps to print manually every other page and then flip the pages manually and print again one-sided instead of printing double-sided. I find my printer doesn't align the 2 sides quite as well if I do it automatically. You're also going to need some material to use as backing. I've got this mat board, just 2 pieces that are 6 inches by 14 inches. And then you're going to need some double-sided tape or glue, a ruler, an X-Acto knife, maybe have a couple extra blades handy, and a dried out ballpoint pen for scoring. You can use another scoring tool if you have one you like better. The main thing is we want to make an indentation on the page that doesn't break the surface so that the paper folds there. And also some scissors. Apologize for this video, we got a little bit of noise going on in the background. Sort of a noisy 3D printer that I'm trying out, but that's what's going on in my office today, so there it is. Let's get to the next part. So we need to put together the base. And so we're going to cut out all the parts on these 2 pages. We really only need to cut along the lines where they are going to be overlapping. So let's cut those out. You'll notice this thick line right there, that's going to be our center fold line where it folds right down the middle. This piece is going to be overlapping in a couple of spots. So we're going to want to cut along these edges that form a right angle so that we get that. I found that leaving a little bit of room on the edges, around the edges that don't overlap, gives me just a little bit more leeway when it comes to attaching my double-sided tape to the back. I don't have to line it up right to the edge. I can overlap a little bit into the area that isn't being used. And that actually makes it so that the double-sided tape comes right to the edge of my mat board when I tape it down. So that's how I do it, I guess. And this one's just going to overlap along this line. So next thing we're going to do is glue the 2 larger pieces together. And we're assembling all of these so that they eventually will form a hexagon. See? So put some double-sided tape down here. Trim off the extra. And attach the 2 pieces together. Just try to line up those textures. You should see where things are kind of supposed to overlap. And, there you go. Do the same thing with the bottom 2 pieces. Let's attach them together, and then we'll attach them to the larger parts. Okay, done and done. Except that we're not actually anywhere close to done. So there's that. And really, you know, it doesn't matter which way these overlap as long as they're all there. It'll work, you know. Okay, and we do want to make sure that these textures line up. So let's try to do that as best we can. The better these line up, the more the other textures will line up later on. So there we go. This is our hexagon, and we're ready to attach this to our heavier backing material. It should fold right where we scored earlier, right down the middle line. Just make sure you have a good crease down the middle. And then what we're going to do is attach this thicker mat board to the outsides so that it gives it the support it needs. Well, guys, had a little bit of an earthquake today, this morning. So that was new. I have not been in an earthquake of that size since 2001. The time I was in this high-rise building in a town called Jian on the east coast of Taiwan, near Hualien. And I remember feeling the whole building just rocking back and forth. I think we were on like the 13th or 14th floor. Probably the 14th. We're on the 14th floor, and I just remember the whole building like rocking. And it wasn't so much you could feel it, you could see that you were moving out the window. It was a little bit freaky. And I just put that on wrong. Distracted by my awesome story. So what I'm going to do is trim this board a little bit. You need to make sure that you leave some space in between the two boards that form your base. So if I just trim this one and make sure to leave space on the other one, it should be okay. Anyway, rocking back and forth in Taiwan. I don't remember being that scared then. This morning, though, as I was doing making some minis, it was weird. At first, because we kind of live in a construction area, I thought that like a big truck was going past or something. But it was an earthquake. 5.7 magnitude. Crazy. Okay, so that is our base. It's attached, and we have just a little bit of space there left in between, about a 1/16 of an inch, but that's enough. As long as they're not touching. If they're touching when you put them together, it can make it really hard for the pop-up to lay flat after it's been stored for a while, right? So after it's been stored for a while, all the pieces, all the paper kind of gets used to being folded, and it just doesn't stay flat very well. You have to open it and let it sit for like 20 minutes before you play a game on it. So if you want it to open up and stay flat right away, leave that gap in there, and it should be better. A little bit depends on your paper thickness as well. If you're using like a 60 pound paper, it will obviously have less, there'll be less tension holding it open. So the weight of your backing material can do the work of holding it down more easily. But I think I'm using 80 pound paper for this one, so it's good to have that gap in there. It just makes the pop-up lay flat that much better. So that, because I don't want to have this stuff open ahead of time. I want to be able to open it right there, and like my players and my campaign are going down the road, and they're like, boom, you reach this shop. All right, so let's get working on the parts. The first thing we need to do on the parts is score, which means we need to use our dried out ballpoint pen, our scoring tool, and we're going to score wherever we see a blue arrow pointing to another blue arrow. And what that's going to do is make it so that when the paper folds, it folds right where we want it to fold. So that's page 1. I believe this is page 2. So I have 3 scores on that part. And 3 there. And that one. And I think for that page, I'm going to do this other page. And then we'll start cutting. It's easier to score before you cut. If you have already cut them out and didn't score, you can go back and look at the digital file and see where you were supposed to score and score at that time. That's fine. It's just a little easier to do it now. Speaking of things that are easier to do first, this is part number 1. We're going to start with part number 1, and we're going to cut out these interior spaces first because they will be harder to cut out later. It's easier to cut them out before you cut out the outside. All right. Part number 1. I really enjoy drawing this one. I love little trinkets, tchotchkes. It's fun to imagine that, like, what a shop would look like in a medieval fantasy world. Because in a lot of ways, obviously, it would look just like shops today. But in subtle ways, it would be different. And, I first designed this pop-up building completely, just with white paper, and I thought it'd be really cool to make a shop. It always needs shops. Obviously, someday I think it'd be cool to make like a whole like everything you would need. You know, blacksmith, carpenter, tannery, the town hall, the tavern, the inn. Those are probably gonna be the same place in a small town. The you know, just everything you would need so that the town can function. All right, so we cut out part number one, and part number one is pretty straightforward in and of itself. There aren't there's only one fold down the middle, and then these two flaps are what attach to the base and make sure everything works. So we're gonna first attach spot 1 to B1, and then we're gonna attach spot 1 to B2. And those two spots are pretty important. They're gonna make sure that this pop-up pops well, and they're actually gonna do a lot of the work for some other parts like part 6 and part 5. So it's important that they're in the right spot. So I'm going to match up the textures on the part and on the ground, and just make sure that they are in just the right spot there, and there. Okay, so that is part 1. We move on to part 2. And part 2 is sort of like part 1, very similar. Just a corner wall that pops up right along the crease, and it is also like part 1. It's going to be doing a lot of the work for part 4 and part 3 in terms of making sure that they pop up properly, because they're going to be attached to part 2. So I'll just cut that out. And away we go. All right, so again, folds down the middle, and we have the flaps. And it's gonna go right in here. 2 to B2. 2 to B1. And we're gonna again match up the ground textures just to make sure it's in just the right spot. Boom. All right, fold it, make sure everything folds flat. It does, it's perfect. We're good to go. So that was part 2. Part 3 is next. And part 3 is a cool part because it has a little window with a little board going down the middle. Be careful not to cut that out accidentally. If you do, you get 2 options. Either cut it all the way out, or just glue a little piece of paper on the back of it. The backs of these have tons of, texture and stuff that you can just glue on if you make a mistake. Make it kind of cover your mistake. So I should say repair your mistake. There's no, just is what it is. You're not trying to cover anything up. You're just trying to make sure that it's fixed. All right, so part 3 is going to attach to part 2, and you're going to do valley fold, mounted fold, valley fold. And you can see where that part matches right up with the window there. So you're going to get that right in the right spot. And then the base is pretty simple. You know where that goes. So we'll line this up with the base textures. And then we'll attach this piece under the window to part 2. Okay. Looking good so far. Looking real nice. Time to do part 4. And part 4 is also going to be pulled up by part 2. So it doesn't need a whole lot of help either. Pretty much the same thing. You're going to do a valley fold, mountain fold, valley fold to create this valley fold, mountain fold, valley fold. And you got this piece right here. 4 goes to B, 4 goes to 2. You attach both of those spots, and you're good to go. Again, this pop-up has a lot of cool parts that come together to make a cool looking building, but it's not the most complex one to do. And then also the way the parts interact, there's not really it's not really that much that could go wrong. It's nice that for the most part on this one we're going to be gluing front pieces to front pieces, so we don't have to worry so much about the front and back alignment of the paper messing anything up. Part 5. Okay. Part 5 is a cool part, and I'm super excited about it because the reason it works is because there's a door in it. If there wasn't a door, it wouldn't work. And it makes me happy every time I see it. And it advertises that at this shop, you can get a hand of glory, whatever that is. I feel like I knew what it was when I drew it, but that was like a couple of months ago. Anyway, it's a cool thing to get, whatever it is. So we're gonna attach part 5 where part 5 goes. Part 5 is not gonna work without part 7. So maybe don't try to fold it until you've done 6 and 7. Part 6 is nice. Just makes a big foyer for the shop. And it's got some windows. You don't have to leave that drape there, but I thought it was a really cool thing. It's like, oh, the drape. So I drew it on there. Little metal doorstep there. Okay, I'm done with page number 3. We just throw that away. Okay, again, pretty simple. Got a mountain fold in the middle, 2 valley folds on the sides. And tape it on with your double-sided tape. You could use glue. Some of these parts, I feel like glue would be a little better. But with this one, I would say double-sided tape, just because you can put it together so fast. It's got these nice wide connection points. Really nice to put together with tape. Line that up with the textures on the side. You're rocking. Okay, part 7. Part 7 is what makes part 5 work, guys. You don't have part 7 in there. Part 5 is just a flat piece of paper that doesn't go anywhere it's supposed to. I mean, most pieces of paper are flat, but this is like extra flat, okay? All right, so 7 to 1 is what we're gonna attach right here. And we want it to go behind part number 5, okay? So that when it folds, part number 7 is gonna go through the doorway on part number 5 and make it all work. We're gonna make sure that that folds right the first time, so it will fold right every time after that. Okay. So that's all looking great. Let's do part number 8. Holy crap, guys, that was amazing. I didn't even mean to do that. And part number 8 is this cool part. It just goes on the roof and someone threw some stuff up there, a couple of boards. Don't ask me why, you know. But somehow stuff on a roof, man, that's like, it's a cool thing. It shows like a certain amount of neglect that that involves children, I think. One, you didn't take the stuff off the roof, and 2, like, you were supposed to be watching those kids that were throwing stuff on the roof, right? You failed twice. Okay, so at this point, we've done most of the structural stuff. What we're going to do now is the tabs. And what the tabs are going to do is make sure that the roof's pieces are on there and stuff. So we're going to cut out the little tab slots first on all of them because it's super easy to forget about somehow for me. And I don't want to have to cut these out after I've cut out the rest because these tab pieces often have some pretty thin parts that would be tricky not to break by cutting out these little tabs after the fact. Okay, so tab 1 goes with T1. And together, they're going to attach to part 1. Okay, so there's a theme on this one. Doesn't always work out that way with these tab parts, but I'm just happy that it worked out that way this time for this particular part. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so we're going to attach some adhesive here. I think I want a little bit smaller piece of adhesive for this. Put some adhesive on the T1 to 1 spot. And then we're going to slot tab 1 and T1 together and then attach them here on part 1. So tab 1, T1, part 1, it all comes together and there's a roof. Well, one side of one roof. And then we're going to do T2. We're going to do the same thing. T2 and tab 2 and part 2, which again, couldn't have worked out better. It seems like I did it on purpose, but I think it just worked out that way this time. If I did it on purpose, it would have been that way on the other pop-ups I made, and it really wasn't. So this is going to make the roof of this higher section complete. Okay. So we got T2 here. And we're attaching tab 2 onto it, slotting it on. Slotting it onto place here. And then attaching it here. Okay. So that is that roof. That's looking good. We just need to do tab 3, okay? And guess what? T3 and tab 3 also correspond with part 3. I know. What are the chances of that being a coincidence? I don't know. You tell me. I didn't take statistics. Okay. And then tab 3. And what this is going to do is cover up this gaping hole on the side. One gaping hole on the side is enough, if you ask me. I imagine that's where people are like parking their like horses, delivery carts or whatever. And then bring them in. Okay. So let's get a little more adhesive here and finish this thing up. So this one, I mean, it looks complicated. It has a lot of parts that come together at different angles, but and it looks great. But it's not that complicated of a miniature of a pop-up to put together, and really excited with the way it all turned out in terms of the textures and the shape kind of working together to make this cool. This cool shop where your players can come and buy their trinkets. You know, they don't have to go all the way back to town. They come across this shop. Although I don't know if I would trust those ogre toes. Also, if you look into this room, under this flap, you'll see that there's like this mysterious pile of like random bones. So, you know, there's like skulls and stuff in there. It could be unhealthy to trust the people who work here. Who knows? Anyway, Trinket Shop should be able to find these on stonehavenmini.com.